Coming up today, turmoil in Britain following the country's decision to leave the European Union. The ruling Conservative Party is looking for a replacement for David Cameron. The opposition Labour Party is in full revolt against its leader. South Korea's Prime Minister is in China for the Summer Davos Forum. He'll also hold talks on North Korea with his Chinese counterpart and President Xi Jinping. First, the US Special Envoy for North Korean human rights issues is due in Seoul for talks with South Korean officials on Pyongyang's rights abuses. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, June 27th here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, the decision by British voters to withdraw from the European Union is causing political chaos in the United Kingdom, with the result leaving the government rudderless and unstable. The two favourites to become the next leader of the Conservative Party and therefore Prime Minister, the Leave campaigner Boris Johnson and the Home Secretary Theresa May, are said to be preparing their campaigns. Prime Minister David Cameron said last week that he would resign by October. The main opposition Labour Party has been hit with a series of resignations by the shadow cabinet, and its leader Jeremy Corbyn is coming under intense pressure to step down. The world is still digesting the result as well. US Secretary of State John Kerry says Britain's exit from the EU must be done as smoothly as possible to minimise economic disruption. Speaking in Rome, he said the United States respected the UK's democratic decision, although it had hoped it would have gone the other way. South Korea, China and Japan have all expressed concern about economic stability following the Brexit vote. China says the decision would cast a long shadow over the global economy. Tokyo's finance chief said Japan should be ready for violent shifts in financial markets. Staying in Europe, and Spain's far-left coalition, Unidos Podemos, could have made a sensational breakthrough, finishing second behind the Conservative People's Party in Sunday's general election. According to an exit poll by state broadcaster TVE, the People's Party is likely to grab the most seats with some 28.5% of the vote, but it's likely to fall short of taking a majority of 176 seats in the 350-seat Congress. The poll suggests that they will be followed by Unidos Podemos with 24.8%, with the socialist PSOE and a centre-right party in third and fourth, respectively. Sunday's election came after Spain's main parties failed to produce a government last December. The vote also came just a few days after the UK voted to leave the EU. Now, Britain's decision to leave the European Union has sent shockwaves through global financial markets, and Korea was absolutely no exception last Friday when the world was still trying to digest the result. The Korean government held emergency meetings on the issue on Sunday to help minimise the negative impact here. Kim Hae-sung has the details.
Ahead of markets opening on Monday, Financial Services Commission Chairman Im Jong-yong convened an emergency meeting of Korea's financial authorities. In the meeting, Chairman Im emphasized that Korea has enough resilience to withstand the Brexit bump.
Korea ranks 7th in the world in terms of foreign currency reserves, and its short-term debt has also dropped to half the level from 2008.
He added that the real economy won't be affected right away, as the process of the UK leaving the EU will take at least 2 years. But Chairman Im said Brexit could raise questions about the current global economic financial order, which has long emphasized integration and openness. Already, politicians in several other European countries have called for their own referendums. Such moves trigger global uncertainty, causing capital to move from equities into the dollar or other safe assets like gold, resulting in a capital outflow from Korea. To help stabilize markets, Korean financial authorities said the measures on the table include the easing of stock buyback limits and the creation of a stock market stabilization fund. Later in the day, Korea's Deputy Prime Minister Yoo Il-ho also met with economic experts to discuss policy measures.
We will monitor the domestic and global markets around the clock and put together a task force team.
The Deputy Prime Minister said the government will help remove unnecessary market uncertainties by securing liquidity and strengthening communication with foreign investors and credit rating agencies. It also plans to work with other international organizations and G20 member countries to strengthen the global financial safety net. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
South Korea will hold another round of trilateral talks with China and Japan to work out details on their planned free trade deal. South Korea's Trade Ministry says the two-day working-level negotiations begin in Seoul on Monday. The 10th round of such meetings will bring together Korea's Deputy Trade Minister Kim Hak-do, China's Vice Commerce Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn and Keiichi Katakami, Japan's Deputy Foreign Minister for Economic Affairs. The Northeast Asian economies launched the talks in 2012 to forge a comprehensive and mutually beneficial agreement. The discussions are expected to go beyond flow of goods, services and investment to include country of origin rules, customs, sanitary inspections, e-commerce, intellectual property rights, the environment and technology barriers. The World Economic Forum is holding its annual Science and Technology Conference in China this week. The field's movers and shakers are in Tianjin to discuss the changing world under the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. For more on the meeting of the new champions, also known as the Summer Davos, Kwon Jang-ho reports.
The city of Tianjin is once more hosting the World Economic Forum's annual meeting of new champions. Now in its 10th year, the event's size and significance has grown alongside China's presence in the global economy and politics. This year, they're expecting over 1,700 participants from 90 countries, bringing together the world's leading figures from government and business in the spirit of collaboration.
And for us, that means it's an opportunity to talk to other Chinese business leaders and to tell our story to government leaders. And that's hugely important, especially given how on the ground we are.
Over 2.5 days, the organizers have planned 200 sessions on a wide variety of subjects, but many of them are behind closed doors. Behind me down there is an area called the Village. It's where the participants can meet up and share their ideas. And the reason why I'm up here is because it's closed off to the press and media so that they can focus and do that without being disturbed. Not only is it a chance for networking, there are also exclusive participants-only sessions and demonstrations to fuel ideas.
This is the 5th World Economic Forum in China that I've attended, and this meeting has taken on an identity all of its own. So this meeting has become a place where we can ourselves experiment with the future and then come together to talk about the implications.
The World Economic Forum's central theme this year is the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and one of its key stories recently has been the groundbreaking milestone of machine beating man in the game of Baduk, also known as Go. Baduk Grandmaster Lee Se-rol was invited to talk about the significance of that moment.
AlphaGo on a number of occasions played in a surprising way. It played some very creative moves, and therefore it's important for us to consider what creation really is and what being creative really means.
It's not always easy to measure the outcomes of these exchanges, but the forum and many of the participants say that sharing and collaborating can produce a synergy effect of new ideas and solutions to the issues affecting the world. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
South Korea's Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn is in China for a 5-day visit. His first stop, Tianjin, for the 2016 Summer Davos Forum. At a special session on Monday, Hwang will introduce Korea's flagship creative economy policy, which aims for the convergence of science, technology and culture. Moving to Beijing, the Prime Minister is scheduled to meet with President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang to discuss North Korea's missile launches and their impact on peace and stability. Beijing has urged restraint on all sides. Hwang is also expected to bring up illegal fishing by Chinese boats in South Korean waters. His visit will also include a trip to Liaoning province, which borders North Korea, a first for a sitting South Korean PM. He'll meet with Chinese leaders and businessmen to expand bilateral cooperation and exchanges. Concerns are growing about North Korea's missile re-entry capabilities following the regime's partially successful ballistic missile launches. Many expect Seoul and Washington to fast-track talks on deploying a hotly debated US missile defense system to South Korea. Arirang has the latest.
North Korea's Musudan missile launches last Wednesday have heightened concerns around the world over Pyongyang's nuclear capabilities. While the first launch attempt ended in failure, the second missile flew at a height of 1,400 kilometers and traveled 400 kilometers before it crashed into the East Sea.
We are happy as our nuclear carrier method was clearly successful, and we can now stand confidently in the face of any nuclear war threats from America.
The second missile launch was deemed a partial success by Pyongyang and many international observers alike, seen as a progressive step in bolstering its rocket re-entry technology for an intercontinental ballistic missile.
The technological characteristics of our missile power system have been confirmed, and the heat endurance and flight stability of the warheads were verified in the re-entry area.
Speculation is rising that these developments could accelerate talks between Seoul and Washington on deploying the United States Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System to South Korea.
We've said time and time again that THAAD is a system that intercepts short-range, mid-range, and ballistic missiles. So based on that, I think we can determine whether the system can intercept Musudan missiles or not.
Official talks on THAAD deployment began after North Korea's long-range missile test in February. Young, Arirang News.
Now, the US Special Envoy for North Korean human rights issues, Robert King, will arrive in Seoul later on this Monday. The US State Department says King is set to take part in a symposium on Pyongyang's human rights issues and hold one-on-one talks with top South Korean officials during his 4-day trip. Ambassador King last visited South Korea in April, where he sat down with senior officials to discuss ways to closely coordinate on human rights issues north of the border. In mid-June, he was in Britain and Belgium to meet with EU officials. The European Union has long been an active player in international efforts to improve the human rights situation in the reclusive regime. Iraqi forces have recaptured the city of Fallujah from Islamic State militants after a month-long operation. Fallujah, a major city in Anbar province, was the first Iraqi city to be captured by ISIS fighters in early 2014. More than 1,800 militants were killed in the operation to take back the city. Iraq's Prime Minister declared it a joyful victory and said they would soon retake the ISIS-held city of Mosul as well. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon welcomed the victory and stressed that the UN will support Iraq and its people in all aspects. However, he urged Baghdad to investigate reports that some forces linked with the Iraqi government had committed rights abuses against displaced civilians. Now, at least 1 in every 500 babies in Korea are born with hearing disorders. Some help could be at hand, though, as researchers here have discovered a substance that could help reverse deafness from birth. Kim Mo-kyun reports.
Congenital deafness or inborn hearing disorders are mostly caused by mutations in a protein located near the inner ear called pendrin. The mutated pendrin loses its function of forming proteins and leads to genetic disorders, including congenital bilateral hearing loss. But a research team from the College of Medicine at Yonsei University found a substance that could help the mutated pendrin regain its function. Their findings state that a protein called chaperone can activate and strengthen the function of pendrin, making it possible to secrete protein again in an unconventional way. This has drawn attention among researchers as it could be a stepping stone to developing an effective treatment for congenital deafness.
We are currently researching on developing medicines that can activate and increase the prevalence of chaperone.
The latest findings have been published by the international science magazine Nature Communications. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled bulletin coming up at 10 a.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.